Welcome to SUSD Spotlight, your go-to source for all things happening within the district. Whether it's celebrating student and staff achievements, delving into trending education topics, or highlighting inspiring human interest stories, we've got you covered. Join us as we illuminate the incredible endeavors taking place in our schools and forge connections within our community. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and engaged as we embark on this journey together, spotlighting the extraordinary in SUSD. Well, welcome back to SUSD Spotlight Podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Menzel. I'm the superintendent here at Scottsdale Unified School District. I'm joined by Christine Harrington, our Director of Communications and Marketing. And in studio today, we have Dr. Michelle Watt. We are excited to introduce to you a visionary leader at the forefront of integrating artificial intelligence and innovation strategies within the educational landscape of Scottsdale Unified School District. Michelle, tell us about your background and why you are so excited about the work we're doing in SUSD.
All right. Well, I am still a recovering kindergarten teacher, but I've been working in IT for over 20 years and was super excited to join Scottsdale. I learned about the strategic planning process that was bravely launched in 2020, and that helped influence my decision that this might be a good place for me. And since then, I've really enjoyed working with the staff in the IT department and all of the projects and work that have been going on there. Also working with other leaders and supporting our students across the district. And this is a great place to be also because of the community support we have. The resources that our voters support in Scottsdale Unified School District make leading digital transformation and supporting that it's always a challenging task, but a much less challenging task when you have the resources that you need.
So when you talk about digital transformation, what exactly do you mean by that?
So taking processes that maybe didn't have technology infused in them and seeing how technology can improve or completely change those processes so that, we definitely support technology in the classroom and what's happening with teaching and learning, including the one-to-one device initiative here in Scottsdale Unified School District, but also those processes that help keep our data safe and help people do their jobs and get paid and all of those different things across the school district.
Can't imagine a world without technology. But in the current environment, there are a lot of conversation around artificial intelligence and what it means for teaching and learning. A lot of fear with respect to students perhaps cheating by using AI, concerns about the extent to which it may or may not be reliable. What's your experience so far? And maybe talk a little bit about the strategic action team that you're leading around innovation and artificial intelligence here in Scottsdale.
Absolutely. Wow, there's a lot there. My experience with AI, I think I've seen mirrored in other folks when they start using generative AI. I had really high hopes for what it could do for me and had a meeting that I wanted it to completely plan the agenda, all of the activities, and it couldn't do that. So I have been on my own journey and learning curve using generative AI. And now when I look around, and just in the course of daily work, I see evidence of it being used. And it's interesting how using it helps you be more aware of where it's popping up and being used. So I think we've seen some of our teachers go through that same path. So I definitely think that one of the first steps in reducing the fear around generative AI is to start using generative AI. But more broadly, when this challenge first came into the awareness of K-12 education in around November of 2022, it caused a lot of panic and anxiety, and how are we going to manage this? And there are still things where people feel like they're not quite yet ready and ahead of it. For example, the state of Arizona is just now drafting some AI guidelines and reaching out to a few of us to give some feedback on those before they make those public. So the nice thing is that in SUSD, we have a lot of things in place to meet this new challenge with generative AI, including our strategic action teams. I'm partnering with Dr. Dave Perniske to lead the Innovation in Teaching and Learning Strategic Action Team. So we already have a group of people who are also interested in creating a culture that supports innovation and what we can learn from trying different things and measuring our success and moving on and improving, or leaving that behind and taking the lessons from it with us. And so that's a natural place then to be looking at how do we safely and effectively embrace generative AI in our school system. In fact, that's the mission then of the AI work group that is part of the Innovation Strategic Action Team. So that work group came together and really looked at some authoritative resources from groups that help support digital learning in education, like ISTE and the Consortium for School Networking, and looked at the resources they were providing to help guide us and what we would be doing in SUSD. So some new things have come out of that, but also it just emphasized some of the things we were already doing. For example, any digital tool or learning resource that we want to bring into our system, we already have a process for evaluating that and integrating it safely into our system. So we were able to build on some of the processes like that evaluation process to bring AI into the school district.
So what do you see as some of the promising potential for artificial intelligence in the educational environment?
Having been a teacher, I know what a large job that is. There just aren't enough hours in the day. And so one of the potential things that generative AI can bring to education is in saving time or just cognitive load for our teachers. They're still using generative AI doesn't mean that they don't use their educational expertise when they're crafting messages, creating rubrics, drafting learning activities. It just means that that first draft is a little easier and not as time consuming.
Have we heard from students? I've seen you engage with our student advisory board. And have we heard from students about the ways they might be using this as a tool in their learning?
It's really interesting to hear from students. We hear from them the things that we had an idea of, but they're also seeing that this is the way of the future. If students aren't learning how to effectively and safely use generative AI, then they're not going to be as competitive in the workplace or successful in their future academic career. But they're also recognizing that there are developmental levels of what type of access should be allowed to generative AI, that there need to be guardrails in place. That's literally the term a student used on a student panel talking about generative AI. And they recognize that just like using a calculator is not okay if you're being tested on your ability to add and subtract, there are times when using generative AI is not okay and other times when it can be. So it's nice to hear that from our students, and because those are the things that as leaders investigating this technology, we're finding as well.
What can you tell us about the district partnership with Magic Schools?
Yeah. So SUSD is the first district in Arizona to join the Innovators program with Magic Schools. And, we've all heard about this new skill of prompt engineering. And if you've used generative AI, you know that what you get out of it is only as good as what you're putting into it. So with Magic School, they lower the bar for being able to use, for teachers or educators to being able to use this tool. They've created some of those interfaces that help a teacher to create a rubric, for example. So instead of having to design a prompt from scratch, if they want a first draft of a rubric, then there are just a few questions that they answer, and then a rubric comes out, and they can either supply some additional prompts to improve that, or just copy and paste it into another document and make their edits there. So we're finding that for people who try out this tool, yes, our leading, innovators who just can't wait to try any new tool are finding it very useful, but also those reluctant educators and leaders who are not sure if they're going to, what value they're going to find in generative AI, they find it very easy to use the tools in Magic School as well. So it's a great tool to be partnering with, because they also have the privacy protections that we are concerned about. And they are looking at now how can they provide students access to this tool in a way that is appropriate for K-12 education. Some of the other generative AI tools that are out there may specifically say, this is not for someone under 18, or only with parent permission, those kinds of things. So we really want to partner with someone who is going to be focused on what schools need in order to make sure students have safe access to generative AI.
So you mentioned prompt engineering. I think that there are a number of new occupational opportunities that will emerge as a result of the developing technology. What advice do you have for people who are thinking about future careers? They're interested in information technology or some of the things that you work on, cybersecurity. What would you say is something for students and or others in the community to be aware of with respect to what's on the horizon?
I think it's always really powerful to follow your interests. So if someone is interested in it, then I encourage them to learn more about it. I read a book about passions and creativity, and there was commonly we might give advice to students, follow your passion. Like, how great if your passion can also be your career or your job. But really, many of us don't know, well, what is my passion? And following an interest sometimes can evolve into a passion. So I would say that first, if you're interested, that's a really good sign. And learning more, you may find that it is something that is interesting as far as a career. I know that was really how I got into IT from having been a kindergarten teacher. I was good at helping people to use technology, so I thought maybe I would enjoy being a technology professional, and was shocked in my first class when I realized I was going to be learning how computers talk to each other over a network. I thought it was magic, or I'd never really thought about it before. And but it's exciting when you are interested in something and then you learn how it works, because it's not magic. Even, generative AI, it's people have kind of compared it to predictive text. I think the predictive text on my phone is not very good. Mm-hmm. So it's a good comparison, but it's also not, because this type of generative AI is much better than predictive text.
We do have a leader here in our superintendent that absolutely embraces technology and artificial intelligence and trying to better understand what opportunities are there. Does that put us in a better position than other districts? Are we leading the pack then in this area?
Yes, I think we are leading the pack. We're further ahead than most of them in even just some of the things that are established that are making it easier to investigate and safely implement AI. So,
from my experience, I think there's some low-hanging fruit with respect to AI, and there are different tools. So people, I think, are familiar with ChatGPT. One of my favorite tools is Claude. I've used that to help synthesize response. So we'll do the question of the week to employees, and we get multiple open-ended responses. And within 20 seconds, I'm able to get a themed analysis of all of those responses in a way that allows us to reflect back to the staff what the sentiments were related to the question of the week. Saves a ton of time compared to if I had to go through, read each one of those, then create my own analysis of what the themes were. So I believe there are some easy points of entry that aren't threatening to individuals, but demonstrate how it can be a time saver for teachers, administrators, and for others. If you're just looking for some ideas for question prompts, it's really good. But asking the right questions of the generative AI is really critical, because if you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong prompts. And you always, in my estimation, have to be careful to look at the response that you get, because sometimes it isn't accurate. I've had to run a query 2 or 3 times before it provided something that I could feel confident in the response. And so I think that's a skill set our students need. Mm-hmm. They need to understand that it's not automatically correct, mm-hmm. and that ultimately they're responsible for their work product. And so while they might use it as a tool, it doesn't mean that it's the panacea for everything that they need to get done.
I want to just add that terminology of hallucinations, it came about when an AI speaks so authoritatively and so wrong. And I recently heard from a panelist on in a conversation around the ethics of the use of AI, that we need to call it out just like you did. No, this is incorrect. It's inaccurate. It's not just hallucinating. It's wrong. And you're right. Our students do need to be aware of that.
I do think that is why it's better to start with that first draft, where you put in mm-hmm. some information to generate some additional ideas. Because if you've ever, myself just playing with it, if I take something I've already written and I put it in there in hopes that it'll somehow make it better, it oftentimes confuses the message, and then it's just incorrect. Mm-hmm. And so knowing what questions to ask, you still really need to be critically thinking all the time to be able to elicit the right response. Mm-hmm. And I want to thank you, because hashtag SUSD Innovates is thriving throughout the community, and our principals are absolutely able to highlight what that looks like on their campuses and in their classrooms. And in fact, the spring edition of SUSD Showcase magazine is focused on all the ways SUSD innovates. And AI is one of those, but also the grants, the seed money that has come about through the strategic plan and that strategic action team. It's been impressive, and you can now see the students actually engaging in all of this coming to fruition.
It is exciting. I agree. Thank you for telling our story.
So I'm interested, now that you've been with us for a few years, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your time leading innovation here in Scottsdale Unified?
Well, that's a tricky question. I am a lifelong learner and have definitely had opportunities to continue learning here in SUSD. And specifically with leading innovation, it is important to me to be in an organization that is continually looking to build on successes and support opportunities for people to experience success. So that's something that we're also looking at in our innovation strategic action team, is where is innovation happening that we can shine a spotlight on. So just the culture and the fact that we are focused on supporting innovation is part of what I have found rewarding. And I do want to say, for our strategic action team, it's important that we acknowledge and remind folks that innovation is not just technology. Yes, technology pushes a lot of innovation or creates opportunity for innovation, but there are many innovative practices that have nothing to do with technology. And so that's really the scope of what we are working on with innovation in teaching and learning.
And it's so important to create an environment where people feel safe to try something new and different. And if it doesn't work, failure is fine, because we learn from failure as much as we learn from success. So it's not always about getting the right answer. It's about having a vision for what's possible and creating the environment where people can try new things and learn from that. And so I appreciate your leadership role in helping make that possible for our staff here in Scottsdale.
Thank you.
Well, and to have those opportunities available to students and teachers alike, to look at time differently, to look at technology differently, and for students too, to be willing to take those risks.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Watt, we want to thank you for being our guest on Spotlight SUSD. And we want to invite our listeners to join us on this exciting podcast journey anytime or place that suits you. Tune into Spotlight as we shine a light on the extraordinary stories that make Scottsdale Unified School District a truly exceptional place.
And please take a moment to pitch us your ideas. We look forward to hearing from you at susd.org/spotlight.